Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JKWD podcast. How are you doing today, Kelvin?
Well, actually,
Okay.
I'm doing well.
You're doing well. Okay.
I'm doing well. Somewhere they hid that laser sun that was coming through and replaced it with a little cooler air, and life is better.
That's probably not a
even
bad thing.
appreciating life being better right now.
Yeah, I think that has more to do with. Sorry if you can hear Java coming through. That's either the bulk pickup coming, the bulk trash pickup, or she's been noticing the squirrels out back lately.
Oh, the squirrels. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the squirrels.
Speaking of squirrels, did I tell you that I had a groundhog in the backyard?
No.
Yeah. The rabbit left. Now we got a groundhog.
Was the groundhog wrecking everything?
I don't really have anything to wreck. So he's just zipping around the property, kind of looking around. And we have decided that he doesn't like me any more than I like him. Because when I go open the door, he's like, oh, crap, it's a human. And he runs away. But I'm not used to having those in my neighborhood. This is the first year I've ever seen one. Well, last year I saw one in the neighbor's yard. This year I had one on my deck. So I'm like, interesting. Where do these people come from? Oh my goodness. However, he doesn't seem to be doing anything destructive, so I guess, live and let live. But it's time for me to do some weed whacking.
Too many places to hide back there, huh?
Yeah, too many places to hide. But life is good. Weather's been good. In outside of the heat, it's been okay. And I have had a minimal consumption of news these days. So if the world is falling completely apart, I'm not aware, and I'm okay with that for right now.
Gotcha. Over this way, we took a nice drive last night. Had to get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
We just drove around, saw a bunch of people in golf carts going to parties.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. The adjacent neighborhood over here is really a lot of people just get around in golf carts.
Right. Oh, cool.
Yeah, the roads are really narrow. I thought about making incorporating that into my running route, and we actually came across some people walking. Like, nope, there's not room for a car and a person on this road. Never mind if people were trying to go two ways in vehicles.
Yeah.
We saw people in golf carts happy about partying, and awesome. We saw a deer or two running around.
Cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those. I've been looking for this meteor that my friends been telling me about, and me and it are not on the same trajectory, apparently.
So, I haven't been looking. I do get out late. I do get out late at night, and I always make it a point to look up.
Yeah.
It's good for the soul to look up and realize that there's just some vast amount of space out there, and there are other little lights and that going on. We have a my brother-in-law, sister-in-law sent us when our daughter was very young.
Mm-hmm.
He sent us this. It's a turtle, but the shell has stars and a moon carved into it, and there's a light inside. So that when you turn it on, it projects upward, and the the cutout stars and everything project onto the ceiling.
Right.
So now she's old enough when we put her to bed, we turn that on. Yeah, it's got a timer for 45 minutes. So we turn that on and we lie down in bed and we look up at the stars. The constellations aren't real, but we try to point them out anyway. Yeah. Hey, look, there's the
Well, I mean, that's the first step to being able to see them when you walk outside, right?
Right.
Because my friend Gary out in Sacramento actually sent me like maps of the stars so I can like look up in the sky and find them. Unfortunately, they're not labeled in the sky like they are on a piece of paper.
Well, there are some pretty cool augmented reality apps that do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and some free ones. Like I had one. I don't know if I still have it on the phone here. I don't think I do. I was using it for a while, but what it would do is you'd open the app and you look up, and it would use the camera,
right,
and the internal compass to you would be looking at the stars, and then it would draw the constellation for you. And if you clicked on a star within the constellation, it would tell you what the star was, how far away it was, if known, what galaxy it was in, all that stuff. And then because it dims the camera,
right,
as you're looking around you can still you can see everything through it. Yeah, every now and then you bring it low to the horizon, and you'd be like, oh, and those are the lights of my neighbor's house.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's why there's no label there. They're right there.
Got it. Well, that was cool. I have not been acquainted with such a thing.
Yeah, so those are really interesting to play with.
We have to look that up.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sheriff.
I'm just going to open my phone very briefly, but I don't think it's still here. No, it's not. Okay.
No. It's okay.
All right. Well, this might be a good time to play the music.
Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go.
I was sitting around the other night, just thinking. I have a picture just up on the wall over here of my grandfather when he was 3 years old. This is traditional haircut that Jewish boys get, their first haircut at 3. I was remembering back. He was born in 1923, and he died in 2008. And I didn't know my dad's dad well. He died when I was 2, but I knew my mom's dad well. He inspired me for kind of the family portion of my life. What he did was when he was dying, he wouldn't let the grandkids come see him, but we talked to him regularly. He'd answer the phone, and he'd talk to us as long as he could. But when he was ready to go, he waited till all 3 of his kids got to him, and he told them to keep the family together. And as we kind of grew up, we used to get together a lot as a whole family. But my parents moved south, and my brother moved west, and I moved south, and then my brother moved south, and then my sister moved south, and so we've got kind of 2 portions of the family. So we've got the Massachusetts people are still in Massachusetts, and then there's a whole branch that's down here now, and my house has become the gathering. area, which which feels great. It's what he was talking about. But I remember 2001, 2002, 2003. We would all be in touch on AOL Instant Messenger. And
well, there's a blast from the past.
So my grandfather, God love him, it would take forever to have a conversation. He couldn't type. And recently I got to thinking, I was sitting there remembering those conversations. You'd have 7 or 8 windows. So you remember how this worked. You'd be talking to your friend, you'd be talking to your sister, and then you'd be able to have 4 whole conversations by the time he got into the sentence out. But then I was like, wow, he was a fairly tech forward guy. He had car phones in his big Cadillacs. I never saw him actually use one, but they were in there. Never saw him actually use the phone, but they were in there. But I was thinking back, he was born in 1923.
Mm-hmm.
So refrigeration was kind of new. We just gotten it. 1913 was kind of the first in-home refrigeration. They just laid the second transcontinental phone line. Like 10 months before he was born.
Wow.
Like they had a couple of years before they laid a line from Florida to Cuba, so you could call Cuba, assuming that you had a phone line that could connect you to Florida. You could call Cuba.
Right.
It was another decade. Like he wasn't. He was like 9 or 10 years old before there's even like a radio available for his house.
Wow.
And he went from that to, in his lifetime, using AOL Instant Messenger. That's pretty astounding. So then I start to think about, he would have barely, like him of like 10 or 11 years old,
mm-hmm.
would have barely recognized the world that he himself, being the same person, died in. So I started thinking about, next I was like, well, geez, here we are, just 12 years after he died. And like he wouldn't have recognized the world he died in. What's it going to be like in another, let's say I got another good 70 years left. Let's say I live to 120.
Yeah, you got a good 70 years left.
Let's say I got a 70 years. What's the world going to look like then? If I'm not going to recognize it, what would my grandfather see? Right? Like, I mean, we were talking about this before the podcast, and you can jump in any time. But I was born in the 1970s, and I remember I was 13 before they could get the cable, before they figured out how to get the cable TV wire across the train track. That was down the street from my house. So if we wanted to watch cable, we had to go to our friend's house 2 blocks away, because on the other side of the train track. I grew up in cars that didn't have airbags, so you could let your kids sit in the front seat. All the front seats were bench seats.
Well, back then it wasn't illegal to be on the front seat without an airbag because they didn't have them.
Right.
That was new age stuff, right?
Really? Yeah, like we didn't.
Tell me how I could put my kid in my car.
We used to sit in like rear-facing station wagon seats. Do you remember those?
I do.
I remember when they put those, when everybody had to have a brake light starting in the late 80s, when they added that third light in the back. When they put the light in the window.
Must have been drinking all that time.
And Yeah, and I mean, you used to be able to just leave your kids in the car. You wanted to run into a store for 20 minutes.
Oh
you
yeah,
could just you could just leave a 10-year-old in the car with a 7-year-old reading or playing.
I remember once my mother was in the hospital, and I was born in '53, so this would have been before my baby sister was born. So we're talking 60, because so 60s. Anyway, my mom had to go to the hospital, and my father had to go see my mom, and left me and my sister in the car. We must have been in the car forever. It was late at night, just sitting in the car, waiting for him to come back from wherever he parked. And I'm like, you can't do that anymore.
No, you definitely can't.
You can't do that anymore. I used to walk to school. Well, I guess kids still walk to school. But I remember walking to school.
Not many of them. Many of them.
I thought it was a long ways, but when I went back as an adult, it really wasn't as far as I thought. But your kids couldn't from the neighborhood I lived in, which was very humble. I think the house I lived in up until I was 10 years old was probably about the size of, might have been a little bit bigger than my living room right now. I mean, the whole house. There were 4 of us in there. And, but we had big cars, but I could walk to school. I walked all over the city at 5 years old.
Yeah.
Safely. Nobody bothered me. And that was back in the days when the neighbors saw you doing something wrong, they could beat you and tell your parents so you should get a second one because they saw you doing something wrong. Yeah. So, man, yeah, it's a different world. I think our first Studebaker or something.
Okay. Wow.
It was huge.
A big thing, yeah.
And big. And my father was so proud to own that bus.
Well, then I was thinking, what about my grandfather's grandfather? That would have been, let's call a generation 25 years just for averages.
Yeah.
So he would have been born around 1870, 1875. That would have, telephone wouldn't have been invented yet. Edison would have still been working on the light bulb.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Nobody had refrigeration in their homes yet. There might be a communal ice chest in the community.
I'm trying.
If you had to, it's like, what a world that guy grew up in, and then the world my grandfather died in. So, just 2 old people ago, we knew nothing. And then my grandfather died in a world that had iPhones.
Yeah.
My grandfather's grandfather didn't have a light bulb. Like, it hadn't even been invented yet. It wasn't that he didn't own one. It's that it didn't exist yet. Yeah.
Yeah. And I gotta admit, these are things we don't think about. And even looking back for me now, born in '53, I remember when we had the black and white TV. Of course, well, it was just TV then because black and white was the only thing there was.
Yeah.
Right? And the little antennas. And I remember when I was, my father was a minister, and the parsonage we lived in, that's, for those of you who don't know, that's the house that the preacher gets to live in, owned by the church, preacher and his family. But anyway, at one time, we had like 5 phones in the house. We had 5 phones and 3 TVs. And I'm like, we're rich. I swear, I felt rich because we had 5 phones and like 3 TVs. And I think one of them might have been color by then, And it's like, Now I'm looking around. I can watch TV on my phone.
Yep.
I can watch movies on my phone. I can check the bank on my phone.
You can check the bank. Like even that sentence in itself, think about what that meant when you were 10. That means that you walked down to the bank where they knew you by sight and first name,
Uh,
where you knew Mrs. Smith was the teller, and Mrs. Smith would look at you and go, "Hi, Kelvin, what can I do for you today?" And you would say, "Mrs. Smith, how much is in my account?" And she would open her ledger and turn the pages and look.
you. Oh.
And you wouldn't need an ID, and there would be no computer, and you wouldn't need an account number because it was like your account number was like 12.
Well, here's something crazy. I went in service, and I was in the Philippines in 1980. And when I went to the Philippines, my baby boy was born over there, and we still had to go down to the records bureau down there to register his birth. And they were still writing things in the Philippines in that time in ledgers. So you'd have the birth certificate, they put the number, they put the page and number in the ledger. And that's how, if we ever needed another one, we had to go back and get like additional birth certificates and stuff. So we went from the US where we were way better, went over there where we had it on base, but not downtown where the natives lived, right? And it was like,
wow,
that was weird. So yeah, I guess we've come a long way since we can manipulate everything we have to do on a little thing we can hold in our hand.
Yeah. Now,
including I can let somebody in my front door from my phone if they need to come to work in my house and I'm not home, right? It's crazy.
Well, and then when you move outside of technology and look around at what the world is like, the world of work, just the world of interpersonal relationships. Yeah. My grandfather's grandfather, that would be my great-great-grandfather, probably my great-grandfather too, born before the invention of the assembly line. Yeah, a thing where like one person does one thing and the next person does another thing, and by the time you get to the end, you have a finished product.
Yeah,
like that was a Henry Ford innovation, and it was with cars, and but we learned that stuff in kindergarten today, or maybe even before. Like, hey Jimmy, you're tracing the pattern, so you're gonna trace the pattern, and when you're done, you're gonna pass that off to Jenny, and you're gonna trace another pattern and pass it off to Jenny, and Jenny's gonna cut out the patterns, and then she's gonna pass it off to Timmy, and I don't know why all my kids' names end in Y, but and Timmy's gonna color it in, and then he's gonna pass it off to Sally, and and Sally's gonna glue the eyes on, and then hand it off to Mary, and Mary's gonna go hang it on the wall, and that's an assembly line. And my great grandfather was born before there was an assembly line.
Wow, man.
Yeah. It's nuts, right? So thinking about this in terms of like jobs and education. And even racial attitudes have been a big thing in our world these last couple of months. And my great great grandfather wasn't born in the U.S. I'm not sure my great grandfather was either. So they didn't know anything of slavery here, and they were the outcasts in Russia. They all my ancestors took off out of Ukraine before the Russian Revolution in 1917 because they saw the bad stuff coming. So they were they were the Fiddler on the Roof people who left and got to the U.S. before the bad stuff happened. So yeah, they weren't aware of what was happening here. With slavery and the Civil War until they got here, obviously, and then they saw that. But heck, I asked you about it before we started, and you were saying that you didn't have it in Maryland. But when you were born, at least down here in the South, there were still whites-only bathrooms and that kind of stuff, and that's in your lifetime.
It is.
Yeah, so
definitely in my parents' lifetime. So I got to hear about a lot of that. And, but where I was born, we didn't have that. At least I remember. Although I will tell you that in 1964, in a hometown that I was in, I integrated the school system.
Wow.
That was a couple of years before the mandatory integration. So, but my father was a minister and he was big in civil rights. So I entered the 6th grade in the white school, and that was quite an experience. That was in Maryland. That was in Greensboro, Maryland. And then the next year we went to the middle school, and actually there were 2 other black kids in that school that year, but they were military dependents. Their parents were in the Army. Their father was in the Army, and then halfway through the school year, they got transferred. So I was back by myself again. And then 1966, I guess, is when we went into the 8th grade, and then the entire school system integrated, and then it got to be fun.
That was in your lifetime.
That was in my life.
And you're not what we might call old. You have
no. I'm only 37, so
you have less gray hair on your head than I have in my beard. So.
It's just the lighting. Yeah, I'm 66 now, so yeah, that was my lifetime. So yeah, we've done that.
Yeah, so and then I can't imagine what it's like on the other side of that coin either.
Strangely enough,
being a bunch of I'm just thinking about all the white kids having their first black classmate, and now what it's like for them now that they're grown and your age.
Oh yeah.
Also strange. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying feel bad for them. I'm just saying you gotta understand whether when you talk
know what to do either.
right. When you talk to somebody of a certain age and they're spouting off, you're like, take a second and just think about it. Like they probably didn't exchange. They probably didn't exchange a greeting with a person of color until they were 12.
We didn't have a lot of those, yeah.
No.
But so yeah, the world has changed a lot.
Yeah. And so I guess my whole point in thinking about this is, if you're frustrated with a person or with your technology or whatever, just step back and look at the perspective of this and how fast the things have been moving, and just give yourself and give whoever you're talking to a little bit of breathing space, and think about what the world's going to be like when you're toward the end of your life, and then think down to your grandkids what it's going to be like at the end of their life.
Well, here's the thing, right? And I think you gave me the math on this at one point. As things progress, it takes this long to get to point here to point B, and it takes half the time to get to point C, and it takes half the time again to get to point D. So from the point where we are with technology and electronics and everything right now, we're not having to look forward 20, 30, 40 years.
No.
We're going to have stuff within the next 10 years that we're having trouble imagining now, right? I mean, you telling me, Elon Musk, who's building a tunnel under the country to get across the country? Yeah.
Well, he's got they built a mile-long tunnel in Los Angeles as a trial, but then he got a contract for building a tunnel under the Vegas Strip for faster transit, and it looks like he's going to get a contract to build another one in Chicago.
Wow. I remember when they came out with the supersonic transport. Remember that, to go across there?
Oh yeah, across the Atlantic.
And I don't know if they're still using it, but
they're not. But they're building a new one. They're not still using the Concorde, but they're building a new system for that.
So life is changing ever so much rapidly.
But even transport. I mean, think about the Wright brothers was 1903 or so, 1904. World War I, you could put a shooter on your tail in a plane. But in the 20s and 30s, the Air Force was still part of the Army. Because nobody thought you could do anything in a plane,
right?
Worth doing, until World War II, and they started building those huge bombers.
Yeah. And now
they're breaking out the Space Force from the Air Force, right?
We've been to the moon. We have a space station. They're just going out there, pulling up, docking, and having coffee. Okay.
Yeah.
It may not be quite like that, but still. But that's where we are. So in the next 10 years, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, and iPhones have been around since the middle of 2007. That was our first real smartphone.
Is that right? Oh, wow.
And all that was an iPod that could make phone calls. But there were no apps yet.
No. Now we can talk to our phones and have it tell us where we're going to go.
Yeah.
But when we get to the point that they're doing that Mission Impossible stuff where the guy is telling Nathan Hunt where to jump through the wall so he can get to the building next door, we're in real trouble then. I mean that's going to be real stuff. So, yeah. So what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Can you imagine? Can we imagine? And what kind of, for lack of a better term, what kind of awakenings will this continuing growth and advancement bring?
Great questions for pondering.
Y'all ponder that. Come up with some ideas, let us know.
jkwdpodcast.com for show notes for this and every other episode, including contact information so you can get in touch with us. VitaminKDaily.com gets your daily dose of positive from the Prince of Positive himself. Visit Kelvin on Twitter at Kelvin Ringgold. Visit Josh on Twitter at Josh Shear. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Bye! A Better Humanhood production.